Hi, Clutter Fairy fans. This is the Clutter Fairy Weekly for November 29th, 2022. I'm your co-host, Ed Gumnick, and I'm speaking with Gayle Goddard, certified professional organizer and owner of the Clutter Fairy in Houston, Texas.
Hi, everybody. The Clutter Fairy Weekly is the webcast and podcast that digs deep into the clutter that piles up between you and the life you want to be living. We explore the habits and behaviors that lead to clutter, and we suggest strategies to slow the accumulation, reduce the collection, and comfortably manage the stuff we decide to keep.
If you're new to our Zoom meeting, we want to let you know that you can share your comments and questions via the chat feature, and I'll try to make sure Gayle gets to them before we move on to another topic. Shout out to Brent, who is with us for the first time. Gayle, you missed he introduced himself before you joined the chat, but he's a first-time participant in Zoom today. So
excellent. Welcome, Brent.
Welcome to him and anybody else who's new. You can also use the raise hand feature to let us know that you'd like to ask a question or make a comment yourself via audio or video. We're also streaming the webcast live on Facebook, so you can share your questions and comments there, and I'll share them with Gayle. We're going to start, as we usually do, by recapping last week's weekly Tittle, which was called In a Spirit of Gratitude. The assignment was to liberate something from your home that was left behind by a previous version of yourself. We would love to hear from our participants in Zoom and on Facebook who cleaned up the litter along memory lane this week. Please let us know in the comments. Anna S. made big Tittle progress this week and shared her report in a comment on our website. She says, I decided to close down my business in 2021 and the paperwork, etc., got completed in the summer of this year. I have been busy taking care of my mother, but it has also been a sort of grieving process to clear out the tools and materials. So I have not done much about it. This weekend, I opened the wardrobe where I stored most of the stuff and donated about half of it to a friend who is still in business and really wanted to inherit the stuff. I might need some of it in the future, but I don't know. And I am so glad that wardrobe is no longer a monster wardrobe that I don't want to open. Who knows what 2023 has in store?
Exactly. You don't know what 2023 will bring, and starting with a clean slate is always good. Since you closed your business, it's good to not have a bunch of stuff from the old business staring at you. And keeping clear space for the new possibilities is really great. It's how you can be open, both figuratively and literally, for the next chapter of your life. So I applaud you for digging into the wardrobe and donating it off to somebody that can use it right now. And because you mentioned that there's a little bit of a grieving process going there, which totally makes sense. It sounds like you probably had to pivot in order to take care of your mother. And so the business had to come second, and letting it go was a necessity instead of a preference or personal choice for what was important to you then. And so I'm sure you're having emotional processing that's going on around giving up the things for the business that you let go of. And good for you that you were able to let go of half of it. And you may want to go back, circle back and do it again some more and see if you can let go of some more of it, and hopefully clear that space and be open for what's coming next. We know it's going to be something fabulous.
Amanda says, we made huge improvement on our garage this weekend and got rid of many things that had been there unused for decades. I will park my car in there this winter.
Excellent. That is so good.
What's funny about that is I think I started to write that down as an example for part of, did that show up in the stuff you were working? Okay. So I didn't after all, but I had it in my head to suggest that as in the subject of motivation, what benefits you can receive. We're going to be talking about motivation later, but
and parking the car in the garage so that you are not walking on the ice and snow and slipping in those things and getting hurt. Great motivation.
Big time.
Right. Yeah. And you can get in and out of the garage and, get in your car in the garage and not have to go outside and walk on the ice to get in the house every day. Totally worth the effort. And I did that years ago for my mother. And that was exactly why, because she was parking on the driveway and then walking, a slightly slanted incline up to the front door out on the exposed sidewalk every day. And I was like, yeah, Mom, we can't. We need to get in the garage so you're not slipping and falling. And so totally worth it. Good for you. And like I said, it's the perfect weather to be doing it, right? It wasn't super miserable to be out there. So yay.
Paula says, I downsized recently and listed some furniture on Craigslist. Someone is interested, and hopefully it will go off to a new home this week.
Yay, that's exciting.
Eclaire said, I donated the pink cut crystal from grandmother that I no longer use. It was difficult to do as it had so many memories. It is time for someone else to complete their collection and create new memories.
Right? That's awesome. I hope you took a picture for yourself, and good for you to make the choice and let it go. Now you have clear space. Now you have more clear space, and that's a good thing.
Susan said, I made more progress this week. I gave a bunch of unwanted Christmas gifts my ex-mother-in-law had given me that were brand new to my ex-boyfriend's kids. They will be overjoyed to receive these things, such as curling irons, blow dryers, straightening irons.
Excellent. That's great.
I think that was an example we gave last week, was unwanted gifts as a category of clutter from
things to discard.
Yeah, clutter from previous versions.
And particularly because it was from your ex-mother-in-law, right? Like, yeah, if it's an ex-mother-in-law, regardless of what a lovely person she is in real life, you don't have to keep gifts from her anymore if they don't spark joy for you. So I'm super proud of you that you gave them away to somebody that really needs them. That's awesome.
M said, when I cleared the space to get my car in the garage, I drove in, made a mental note of my exact location, then backed out and went in to make space to open the car door.
Oh, right.
Very important consideration.
Yeah, you got to be able to open the part. You don't want to squeeze in and out of the door, right? That's the whole point. Yeah, you got to have room to swing and then like step out and then step away from it and be able to close it. And so you really need a pretty wide berth there to make that comfortable and easy.
Samudra said, I let go of Mama's little socks. No more detail. She didn't give us any more detail than that, but I can imagine that was probably a little bit difficult. One. Yeah.
Good for you, Samudra.
And Paula said, great job to anyone who made progress this week, especially if you're in the US and had the Thanksgiving hoopla.
Right? We all did have Thanksgiving hoopla. So
yeah,
any progress is excellent progress. Yeah.
There was the shopping day, the preparation day, the cooking and eating day, the dealing with all the leftovers day. The trying to restore the kitchen to usability day. Oh my gosh.
I know cleanup after Thanksgiving is just like such a nightmare because everything, pot, pan, casserole dish, like everything that's huge gets used at Thanksgiving, and it just makes a washing up nightmare.
Samudra clarified that her mother wore size 4 shoes. Those are some little socks.
Oh, that's some little tiny feet, man. Oh my goodness. Oh, yeah, not really available for not a lot of people need size 4. That's tiny.
Samudra also added that she repaired a lamp and 1 broken pottery top.
Good for you. You got out some glue and things there, did you? That's great. So she did a few little tasks on her task list and cleared them off. Excellent.
And Ginger shared, I gave up a broken carpet cleaner. I intended to fix it, but never did.
There you go. And a carpet cleaner takes up a lot of space too, man. That's a big thing. So good for you. Why keep it if it's not going to be used or fixed? You don't need to share space with it, and you don't need it mocking you in the corner. So good for you that you gave it up. I hope it feels like you got some clean, fresh space there. I hope it feels like a relief.
Okay, we're going to talk about 3 small topics today, so I think we should get started on that. A little later on, we're going to talk about things we keep around for company and tips to cultivate motivation or keep your motivation fresh. We're going to start today by talking about organizing papers to be ready for tax time.
I can hear the groaning already. We're racing year in now, and it's a good time to start talking about tax prep because you're almost to the end of the collection for the whole 12 months of stuff. So if you've been neglecting your filing or you haven't been opening your mail, it's a good time to catch up in support of doing your tax time prep later. So put in some hours now so you don't have to do it all so much closer to the time when you're actually doing the filing. You don't want there is some labor to be expended here, and you don't want to do it all in one weekend, right? Like that hideous get the taxes done weekend that you have in the back of your mind that you dread from January until April when you try to do it. This is specifically for the United States. I'm sorry to say. I don't know what the tax seasons are for other countries. Forgive me for that, but adjust it to your timeline is what I'm going to say around that.
I imagine that at least some of them will, base things on the calendar year and reporting being required sometime in the following year. So it's not
exactly,
probably not wildly different.
Yeah. So, and the concepts translate regardless of the timeline, right? So just plug in your own timeline, the one that applies to you here, and we'll help you get ready. So we want to focus on organizing the papers to be ready for when you're going to go actually do the filing process. And so if you've got a backlog of paper that needs to be filed or mail to be open, you can start with that task first. Like all mail backlog projects, most of it's going to be junk paper and only a small portion will actually need to be captured. So work on that process first. Go dig out your mail and open it all up and throw out all the extra stuff and get rid of anything that isn't important and go find here's the bank statement, here's the receipt for the support of that deduction, here's the W-2 or whatever that's coming in. So dig through your mail. Now, right now, you're not going to have that W-2 stuff yet, but you're going to have all these anything else that supports deductions might be happening. And so grabbing that paperwork right now will be in support of you getting ready. If you've got a filing system going, catch up the filing. If you don't have a good system going, then you can go with our bigger buckets theory. Sort your paper into bigger buckets. And the first bigger bucket is 2022 taxes. So because you're focused on tax prep right now, the other bucket you need is paper that I'm going to keep for non-tax reasons. And those are the two buckets you got to work with. So you can just go through your mail or the piles of paper that you've got sitting around and decide, is it going to go in the tax bucket? Is it going to go into the I'm keeping it for another reason bucket? Or is it going to go to recycling or shredding? And that's all. Those are the only buckets you have to worry about in this sorting process. You're going to need paper that supports any deductions that you intend to take. So you can pull that support right after year end and include any bank statements for the tax year. And don't keep a bunch of paper for expenses that don't have anything to do with tax deductions. So there's no point in sorting paper that you don't actually need for anything. So you're concentrating on what papers support and justify the deductions that you're going to take on the return. And those are the ones that you have to prove if you get audited. Those are the ones you have to accumulate to get the totals. And so that's the paper that you want to try to find. You're also going to need whatever documents represent your income for the year. And that will ultimately be in the United States, a W-2 or 1099s, whatever evidence that you get from the third parties that they sent you income, because that's what they report to the IRS. So you'll be getting these in the mail during February, but some may come earlier in January too, depending on how Johnny on the spot they are. They may send them out earlier. So you want to watch your mail for this kind of documentation coming starting in January and make sure you grab those and pull them out. Put them in your 2022 tax bucket paperwork pile. You want to grab any records that you have to support any estimated tax payments you've made. So if you are somebody who's making estimated payments quarterly during the year, then that's one of the things you have to put on the return is, here's all the money I've already sent you. You want to be able to tell them what that is. So go digging back in your records and find when you've made those payments. And so you have record of them. You can use them to file. And then after you've done this, sorting the mail regularly will help you keep up with those papers that you need after year end. So do this process timely, especially from January to March during the year. January to March is when everybody starts mailing out, hey, the end of the year happened and here's what we have to say about it. And they all send, the charities that you donated to send those lists of here's what you give us during the year, and all the income reporting happens at that time. And so you're going to get a lot of paperwork from January to March or April that has to do with taxes. So stay on top of your mail during the first quarter. And remember at this stage that you're gathering things related to filing your tax return. That's the one big bucket you're trying to fill. So later in the spring, you can put this bucket of paper out and pull it out and sort it to gather the data that you need. So don't worry about creating all the categories or adding up the numbers or trying to subset within the 2022 tax bucket. You just want to focus on, it has something to do with this year's taxes. I'm sticking it in this file or box or whatever you're using, and let that be your focus right now. Does it have to do with taxes or not? And then when it's time to actually do the prep, you're going to pull out this box and sort it as you need in order to gather the data that you're going to need to file. So don't focus on that yet. Don't get distracted by that yet. Work on filling your one big bucket right now. I know taxes are sad. Nobody wants to think about taxes, so we're going to move on.
Well, before we do though, Dawn asked, is the number still 7 years to keep tax stuff?
Actually, it hasn't been 7 years for a long time. If you go to the IRS website, irs.gov, it is 3 years for personal taxes, and it has been for some time, and it states that on the website. It's 3 years for personal and 6 years for businesses. And if you're committing fraud, then they can do whatever they want. That's basically what, if they decide or suspect that you're committing fraud, then they can go back as far as they want. But if you're not committing fraud, which I'm going to assume you're not, then they can go back 3 years from filing. So if you don't file on time, then the clock for those filings doesn't start until you actually file them. So if you haven't filed 2015, for instance, and you finally go and do 2015 this year, then the 3-year audit period starts from when you file. In general, we file this year for last year's taxes, and so you can count back 3 years from what you filed. But if you're running late and you haven't filed on time, then you have to start counting from when you actually filed it. Does that answer the question?
If you're under audit or anything like that, they will notify you of any changes to the record retention that you need to do.
Mm-hmm.
True?
Yeah. But basically, if you have filed your return on time and you count back 3 years, then after those 3 years, the audit, their right to audit has sort of expired and they can't go back any farther. And again, if you're committing fraud, I can't help you. But otherwise, you can do that. You can do it after 3 years. And, 7 years was the old rule. 7 years, there's nothing wrong with 7 years. Some people say 5, some people say 7. And I think some people do it out of caution. It makes them feel more comfortable to retain stuff longer. And that's okay. There's nothing wrong with that. I'm just saying that the IRS has defined it as 3 years and 6 years. And so if you want to, you can be in compliance and not worry about it after 3 years, or you can keep it for as long as you want, however you feel comfortable about it. So totally up to you, truthfully. Okay, are we ready to move on?
Let's.
Okay, so let's talk about the stuff we keep ready for company. Often I find that clients use the excuse of stocking the guest room, in air quotes, as an excuse to keep a huge quantity of extra stuff. And I want to say, be real with yourself. How many guests come to your house every year? How many of them come without their own preferred products at all in their suitcase? So what's the likelihood that any of the vast sea of things that you provide will get used? It's time to be realistic. Would you go to someone's house without anything you normally use? No, you would not. And frankly, you'd probably obsess for days in advance while packing to make sure you didn't leave with something you might need. So do your guests, and they don't need a million things on standby for their use. So let's review our survey results about guests first. 11% of our audience say that they never host out overnight guests, so they don't ever have anybody staying overnight in their house. And of the remainder, here's some of the things we learned. Several respondents mentioned trying hard to make sure their guests feel at home. And Alexis shared this answer. I make sure any visitors have a clean and cheerful environment they feel free to make use of. The fridge is stocked with the foods they eat and any snacks that are a comfort when away from home. All electronics are at their disposal, and I make sure they understand how to use the thermostat so they can make adjustments to fit their needs. I ask them what their preferences are in terms of bathing, sleeping, and eating times, so they do not have to try to silently fit in without knowing what's going on, which is very kind. So really just try to understand their needs so they have a nice and as relaxed visit as possible. I think that's Alexis gave a good sort of target mental space to be in terms of prepping for guests overnight. Thought that was very well written. In answer to our question about specific items that people keep on hand for guests, the most common theme was food or beverages to meet their guests' tastes or dietary needs. Notice there that it's not the stuff, but consumables. 29% of the respondents have a dedicated guest room that serves no other function, while 58% use a guest room that also serves other functions, and 13% host guests in a shared bedroom. 27% are able to provide guests with their own bathroom, which is nice. The rest of us have to share a bathroom with guests. So that means you got to clean your bathroom. About half of our respondents keep pillows and bed linens that are reserved specifically for guests, and the other half share bedding with guests from their household supply. 37% keep a dedicated guest towel supply, and 32% keep a dedicated guest toiletry supply. So for that 32% that keep guest toiletries, I bet there are way too many supplies from our hotel stays in that guest bath. Make sure the personal products you include in the bathroom are fresh and smell okay. And we did have a story one time from someone who said her son came home from college or something and came and went into the bathroom that he used and used some shampoo that was in there. And he came out going, "Mom, why does this shampoo smell so bad?" Something he was using something that had turned in the bathroom, and then his hair smelled like something nasty. So you want to make sure that those products that you have in there are new and they smell fresh and they're usable and not toxic chemicals. And you also have to consider that you really need a few options here, not a ton. You do not need to stock a store, and they are all coming with their own stuff. So don't worry about that so much. You, of course, want to offer fresh linens, pillows, and blankets. And again, there's no need to offer tons of things here. Pull out sheets and towels for each guest and make sure they're fresh smelling. If it's been a while, you might want to wash them again to freshen up. You know how when linens that are sitting in the linen closet for a long period of time, they start to smell a little stale and dusty. So you may want to pull them out and, maybe tumble them in the dryer or rewash them to make sure that they're fresh. And just keep in mind that less is more. Guests need space to unpack what they brought with them more than they need to see your 4 million options that you've been saving for the guest room. So try to create empty space for them so that they can pull out what they brought and make use of what they brought. And, they can always come and ask you, "Oh, I forgot the toothpaste. Oh, I need some lotion." And you can dig something up without any problem. So the less you have for them, the better.
Connie said, "We were guests this past weekend and we've been there before, but this time some things were missing. Maybe host was unaware. There was no space whatsoever, nor hangers to hang up our clothes, no waste paper basket, no water glasses, no bath soap."
So that was a problem. Did you end up, I'm wondering did you go to the hostess and ask for that kind of stuff to be added? You can adapt, right? Like that was something that you could adapt to. Ask for a trash bag, go and ask for a trash can.
She said they made impromptu adaptations.
There you go, right?
Ginger commented, "We don't keep anything special for overnight guests. Our overnight guests are close family. We're very casual." I was thinking as we prepared for this one too, if your only house guests are frequent visitors, family members who visit several times a year or something along those lines, the rules may be a little different. They may either come to expect more and sort of get used to a certain level of amenities, or they may train you to know that they're really self-sufficient and bring all their own goodies and all they need is a clean room to sleep in.
Right. Well, and I do this because I go to my dad's house every year. I have things that I leave behind at my dad's house. And, there's a drugstore everywhere, right? So wherever you end up, you can buy products that you need, that you stock, that you don't want to have to travel with every time. Here's a big hairspray can that I don't want to throw in my luggage every time. So there's things that you can leave behind. And in particular, I leave cold weather gear there because I hardly ever need anything here, and anything that's super heavy. My visits to my dad are the likely only time that I'm going to have to wear that stuff. And so I keep a few things there against really cold weather that happens in the holiday season. And so I don't have to travel back and forth with a heavy coat, and it's sitting there in case I need it in the place where I might actually use it, because it sure isn't here. But I do keep personal products there in large sizes, so I don't have to always have travel stuff. And if you have family coming all the time, they can leave behind a few things that they want to use all the time and stash them for their next visit.
Paula says, I have gobs of leftover hotel toiletries. Been using them up recently, but I have enough soap to last 3 years.
There you go. Keep on using them up. Good job.
And Catastrophe said, I was driving from Texas to California, and the altitude through New Mexico into Arizona somehow made all my toiletries explode in my bags.
Oh, no.
I stopped at a friend's place in Arizona, and they ran everything through the washer while I showered and we grabbed dinner. Had no problem borrowing their stuff for the emergency, and it turned into a great story.
Oh, how funny. I'm surprised that driving made them explode. That's so weird. Well, that's one way to get rid of them, is to have them explode in your bag.
Leela says, my daughter and I used to each have a friend who stayed over frequently. We kept a small plastic tote with a lid for each of them under the bathroom sink with all their toiletries.
Yeah, see, that was very nice for somebody that comes all the time. Everybody has that one or two friends or family members that come over and over and over again.
I always used to keep a pair of my walking and running shoes at my parents' house here in Chattanooga, because
your shoes are so big,
huge, and they take up half of a carry-on
suitcase,
or more.
Right? Yeah,
they take up most of a carry-on.
Yeah.
So I'd have, my shoes and then 3 items of clothing, and that was all I could fit in a carry-on. So I just left a pair here. Lise said, I learned to put all toiletries in a Ziploc when in a suitcase. Definitely a good idea.
Against explosion. That's funny.
Connie also said this host, she said, this host used to have things for breakfast for us. This time we went to store to get the food. It was awkward. You definitely need to, I guess, if you're changing the way you manage with your guests, it definitely seems like a polite thing to let them know up front. We've cleared out this bedroom, or we got rid of a bunch of stuff, and be sure to let us know what you might need. That's a tough one. Yeah.
Well, and I think it may reflect that there's something going on for them too. Like,
right.
It may be a reflection of that their energy is focused on something else right now, if something's going on for them. So they may have just not been prepared to have guests after all, not been able to get ready. And so I'm sorry that it was awkward. I hope you enjoyed the visit anyway, to see your friends.
I should have asked a question on the survey about whether things have changed, or whether or to what extent things have changed for people in the pandemic years, whether there's anyone who's quit having house guests altogether, or whether the numbers have dropped or anything like that.
Yeah.
Didn't think to include that.
Sorry.
All right. Well, let's move on to our third topic.
Okay. The last topic and the source of our tittle today will be tips to cultivate motivation, or to keep your motivation fresh. We frequently talked about motivation, where to get it, how to keep it, why it's so easy to lose it. And the latest request came from an anonymous survey respondent who said, motivation, motivation, motivation. It's all about motivation. Oh, and did I mention motivation? So why are so many people seeming to struggle with motivation? We often talk with our audience about the reasons they've taken on the job of decluttering and organizing their homes, and nearly all of them can talk passionately about the benefits. Ideas like peace of mind, ease of access, safety, improved health, reducing family tension, making the place look better, and so on. It sounds as if motivations are well established in most of us. Maybe the problem is not that we lack motivation, but that our heartfelt motivations constantly get shouted down by fear, fatigue, pain, or our sense of overwhelm. Let's talk about getting going anyway, and see if we can't spark some movement for you in that motivation front. First off, there's nothing like the threat of a deadline to get us moving. So see if you can set an outside deadline, like someone is going to come to visit you, or you're going to have a dinner party, or you're cleaning up before the maid comes to the house, or before the repairman comes to fix something. Sometimes fear of embarrassment will get you going when nothing else will. Remind yourself what the reward is for the work. Take 2 minutes to imagine how you'll feel when the task that you're working on is complete. The relief and the peace of mind and the release of guilt. When faced with a task that you dread, it helps to remember what comes after you face the dread and do the work, which is the relief. Sometimes that overwhelm gets us so focused on what is that we can't remember what will be. And if you take a couple minutes to thinking about it, it might help you get past your overwhelm and get going. One thing you can do is schedule reasonable timeframes for working on the project instead of trying to finish it all in one sitting or one day or one weekend. Match your energy level and your ability to focus to the amount of times that you book for your project, and shift how you think about achieving completion. You don't want to get the job done. You don't want to get the project done. You want to work your appointment time towards the project. And that's the only motivation that you have to get, is to keep that appointment. It isn't to get the whole thing done. You want to focus on a shorter time frame and say, I just want to accomplish this appointment that I made with myself for 15 minutes, 2 hours, whatever it is, whatever your energy level and your ability to focus can give. And let that be the goal for the day and the win for the day when you accomplish that one appointment. And then keep making those appointments over time. You can make a commitment to your future self, the future version of yourself. Think about how grateful your future self will be for the work that you've done in opening up space for the life you want. For some people who struggle to get motivated, the pain and difficulty of letting things go feels greater than the potential benefit of being decluttered. So to shift the balance, we need to focus on what we want for ourselves instead of focusing on the clutter. This is why we keep reminding you to think about the things you want more in your life, that you want more of in your life. Start with a project that will produce a dramatic change. For example, clearing space in the garage to park the car so that winter moments will be easier to cope with, or making space in the bedroom to drink coffee and read the morning headlines. When clients ask me, where do I start? What do I start with? I always ask, what's making you the most crazy, or what will feel like the biggest win for you? And if you start with a project that gives you a dramatic change and makes something really better for you, that will be a huge motivation to keep going on the other stuff. Do one that really is going to make a big improvement for you, just like our listener did. Recognize that your whole decluttering project, generally declutter the house or declutter my life or declutter the garage, the whole project is going to take a long time, but revel in those small successes that you achieve along the way and acknowledge that it takes time to do it, because you have to unpack the habits and emotions behind the clutter as well as the stuff itself. You're having to climb all over your emotional state to get to the work of doing the decluttering. So it does take time, and you want to be cheerful about every day, every appointment, every step that you take that's moving you along that path, instead of waiting to be excited at the end. When you start to have negative thoughts creeping in, like regret or shame or blame or embarrassment about the clutter, remember that decluttering is a powerful way to learn things about yourself. Instead of judging yourself about past choices, look for joy in the way that you've grown and changed, because the person that's standing here now is not the person that seeded the clutter to begin with. So there's a lot of reflection to be done about how you are now versus who you were when all that stuff got laid down and became a pile of clutter. I like that thought a lot, actually. As you're facing that clutter, feeling shame or blame or embarrassment is almost a given. Most people that I'm working with are feeling some level of distress about it. And it's part of my job to just go, yeah, it's just a project. We're just working a project. And on the other end, when that section is complete, when that pile is sorted, when that change has been made, the relief is so great, because you can truly shed. There's no pile sitting there anymore to yell at you, and you can truly shed that feeling of blame and shame. And it's a huge relief when you can let that go. Totally worth the effort just to be able to let go of your negative thoughts about it. I hope that you do it.
Ginger shared a thought that we've talked about before. She says, for me, motivation is triggered by action. I tell myself, just do it, dive in, just don't take too big of a bite so I don't get overwhelmed. We've talked before about how trying to find your motivation at the start can be kind of putting the cart before the horse.
And that's a common theme about productivity, right? The idea that sometimes the only thing you can do is take the first step. Like that's how you get going. And you may not feel it while you're doing it. You may not be in, okay, I'm excited, I'm enthusiastic, I'm going. You may just be having to take a step in order to get the train running down the tracks a little bit. It may not feel fabulous. You may not feel invested or totally enthusiastic about it, but that action, that first step gets you going so that you can sort of get the momentum rolling. It takes a while to gather speed, right? And just like a train, it starts out very, very slow and builds to a regular travel speed. And you can do that with your decluttering project too.
Ginger shared a list that she keeps handy, and the title of it is Smash Procrastination. 1 is decide in advance when you will do it. 2, make it a habit. 3, pretend you're not going to do it, just going to prep, get supplies together.
Ooh,
4,
fake yourself out.
Right. 4, accept that it'll never be perfect. 5, break it down into steps. 6, sprint against the task, Pomodoro technique. 7, put yourself on the line, public commitment.
Oh yeah, to tell people that you're going to do it, or to, invest in a partner, an accountability partner. So you have to say to them, yes, I'm going to do this project this weekend. And then if you don't, you have to say, I didn't do the project this weekend and I have to recommit.
The Zoom interface seems to be getting a little more complicated. Bridget said, my motivation goes down with all the bad news now. All this drama was not what we expected when we retired. I guess it would be good to use the remedies that I gave to clients for years for myself again. I'd love to hear more about that. She didn't say what she meant by that exactly.
Well, and all the bad news is easily ignored. It's time to go listen to some comedy acts on Netflix, or pull out your favorite music, or read your favorite book. If consuming information is distressing to you and you go down negative rabbit holes, it's time to consciously go look for good things instead. There is stuff out there, and you're not going to miss any surprising news. If something goes down super big, it's going to break through to you somehow.
Right.
You don't have to be staring at the TV waiting to hear about it. And so if you find that is demotivating, then that is the first thing that I would change, is how much you consume, because it's only going to get bigger. I mean, the amount of focus that you put on it can only get bigger if you don't actively intervene for yourself and let it go.
Well, it can very easily crowd out the important things in your own life that need your attention.
Right. Or the important things in your life that you feel good about. You don't want somebody else's, entertainment / news reporting agenda to get in the way of the things that are happening in your life that are great. And so I have friends that get sort of stuck looking at the news reporting, and it's like, they're not happy people. They're not happy people when they're really stuck there. And
falling down the doom scrolling rabbit hole. Yeah,
the rabbit hole. And it's like, go scroll on, cute cat videos, go scroll on cheerleading dance videos, go down a rabbit hole that is something entertaining and fun, instead of news that makes you sad and distressed. The news is still out there. You're not missing anything. You can be informed a little bit and then go look at something fun instead. You're wasting time either way. You might as well waste it on something that makes you feel better.
Pat says, motivation may be difficult when working on decluttering or weight loss when there is no done.
Right.
It does help to focus on one step at a time. Every good decision is progress.
Right. And, all things count. Something's better than nothing. We always say doing one thing is better than doing 0 things. and that is a win. And so it really is important that you focus on all of the interim successes, because it is hard as soon as you declutter the house, you're still living there and more stuff is coming in, and it's a constant churn, right? It's a constant maintenance task. So like she said, there is no official done. There's getting it to a state that you can maintain, and then you have to maintain it. And so that's something that is worth, when you get to the maintaining part, you can say, I did my maintenance chores today or this week, or I got that piece done, or I refreshed the pantry, or I refreshed the bathroom supplies, or whatever the process is. Being excited about each step that you take is necessary, because there's no prize at the end where everybody stands still and the house is perfectly clean and everything is where it's supposed to be, and then no one moves ever again. That moment is not coming. So you got to give yourself kudos all along the way. Thank you for sharing that.
Linda shared a terrific quote: "Inspiration will come, but it must find you working." Picasso.
Oh, that's a good one. I like that. And again, taking a step and letting that inspiration come behind.
There was a writer who said something similar. I can't remember now if it was Mom, someone asked him whether he has a muse. I think that was the question. He's quoted in the War of Art by Stephen Pressfield.
Oh, okay.
I'll have to look it up to get the exact quote, but the gist of it was, inspiration comes when I sit down to write at 9 o'clock every morning.
Right.
Having an established habit and an established routine meant that the
part of how you get there.
The motivation knows where to find you when you've trained yourself to be receptive to it.
Oh, good way to think about it, that you're training yourself to be receptive to the habit.
Let me give you one more comment. This is from M, who says, frequently the only motivation I have is to ask myself, who is going to clean up this mess if I don't? So the answer is either I do it or hire someone who can't understand what is important.
Right? Exactly. And who's going to benefit if you do the work? It's 100% you as well. So you get the full benefit of anything that you do for yourself, because you live alone. And so nobody else is messing it up but you. Nobody else is fixing it but you. And you get all of the benefit for anything that you do. And then it's going to stay how you want it, because you're the only one interacting with it. So that is the joy of living alone. It's that nobody's going to mess it up after you fix it except you. So good job.
Let's talk for a moment about next week. We will be back next week at the usual time, Tuesday, December 6th at noon U.S. Central Time, live in Zoom and streaming on Facebook. Life-changing events can disrupt our ability to get or stay organized. Our lives may be rocked by unexpected trauma, such as a natural disaster, a job loss, or the death of a loved one, or we may find ourselves having to adjust to new situations, like a new family member, a divorce, or a move across the country. Each type of major life event presents a unique set of organizing challenges. In our next episode, we'll talk about how to face the special clutter issues that arise around these life milestones. Join us on December 6th for Landmarks and Losses, Organizing Around Life's Memorable Moments.
All right. We'll be ready to talk about that next week.
Let's have the tittle.
This week's tittle is called Reconnect to Your Motivation. This week's objective is to strengthen the connection between your motivations and the sometimes difficult and tedious process of decluttering. So first, we want to reflect on the reasons that you'd like to declutter and organize your home. Write down 3 or 4 that you find powerful or compelling. Select a small decluttering project or isolate a piece of a larger project, such as one drawer of a dresser or one shelf on a bookcase, the bedside table, something small. Schedule a time to work on the project and mark the date and time on your calendar in your day planner. And on the day of your decluttering appointment, review the list of reasons for getting organized that you wrote down before. Decide how much time you're willing to commit, and then work on the project for the time allotted. And then notice any change in your mood, your attitude, or your energy level between the start and the end of your work, and then answer these questions. Did reflecting on your reasons for decluttering make the work harder, easier, or have no effect? Did focusing on your reasons for decluttering make decision-making easier, harder, or have no effect? And do you find the reasons that you wrote down motivational for getting the work done? Did the ideas that you thought would be motivational actually feel like motivation in the end? Then in a few weeks, revisit your list of reasons for decluttering and organizing and try it again. See how it works the second time around. Maybe those motivations, now that you've worked on it a little bit, have changed. And so let's see how it goes. I'm hoping that you can see that thinking about the end result and forgetting about your overwhelm, or ignoring your overwhelm for the moment to think about what the end result's going to be and how that's going to be useful to you, will help you get going on that appointment.
Let me share a few more comments since we have time. Ginger said, I belong to a declutter group on Facebook. We often do before and after pictures. Great for accountability.
That's good. That's really great. And saying that you did it, and then saying that you're going to do it, and then going back and saying that you did it, what can serve as motivation for others as well. Like, you're doing it because you're accountable to the group, but then your example can also be inspiration for the people that are in the group with you. So it helps in both ways. It helps you, and it will help the others that are looking at what you're doing. That's awesome. And the pictures are always super inspiring, right? The pictures are very motivating.
She also said, and Wednesday is anti-procrastination day, a fly lady concept. We'll have to look into that one.
Anti-procrastination day. I love it.
Samudra said, I read only fiction, even when it claims to be news. A little skepticism goes a long way.
Right?
It's the same old, I don't usually need the details.
Well, and the news is a business, and they are, they're creating content for you to listen to with the purpose of keeping you informed, but they're also going to present it in a way that they think makes it entertaining or compelling to keep you coming back for more. So they're actively trying to get you to stay watching the news. And, you have to fight against that a little bit if you find that it is draining you or making you feel bad.
Well, and I think that there has been a change since the advent of the internet, with news, with cable news and the internet, with news coming at us from so many different sources.
Mm-hmm.
The competition is fiercer, and so there's a real trend. There's been a real trend to move toward more outrage and more conflict, and turning everything into conflict
to gather your attention, to capture
to capture
your focus.
your clicks or your views.
Yeah. So defocus. It's also going to be there. You're not going to miss anything.
We definitely don't have to play their game.
Exactly. I mean, news is great, but you don't need 17 hours of news.
Linda said, if possible, please put this Tittle into a workflow that can be printed out and used as a guide for the project. We write up all of our weekly Tittles and put them on the show notes page. So I'm going to share that again. So people, if anyone didn't make a note of it and wants to, you can make a note of this URL, cfhou.com/TCFW145. That will go up tomorrow midday, and we'll have that. The show notes contain the complete text of the Tittle, and
so you can print it out.
So you can print it out for yourself from there.
I like the idea of having a printed version of it for you to compare as you work. That's cool.
I have thought about, I may eventually rework the Tittles a little bit and capture them all to a single, we'll still post them every week on the show notes, but also maybe have a place that aggregates all of them to make it really easy for anybody who's just looking for an exercise to try. Okay, let's wrap it up. If you're watching this on YouTube, we would love for you to join us live. To get notifications about upcoming events, we invite you to join the meetup group by visiting cfhou.com/meetup. You can also follow us on Facebook by visiting cfhou.com/Facebook, or subscribe to our mailing list by visiting cfhou.com/subscribe. We love to hear from you, so please Send us your questions, comments, and topic suggestions on YouTube, Facebook, or anywhere that you find us. You can always reach us through our website at clutterfairyhouston.com.
Thanks everybody for joining us. We're always happy to see you, and we hope that you had a good Thanksgiving holiday just went by, and we will be sliding into the Christmas holiday season, the winter holiday season any minute now. So come along with us for the ride until we take our time off at the end of the year. We'll see you next time.
Bye-bye.
Bye.